Hello and welcome once again to Let's Start Cooking. I'm Wayne, and today I've gotten a couple requests for holiday desserts, and with Thanksgiving coming up and we know what's coming up next after that with Christmas and everything, I think what we're going to start with is a classic pumpkin roll. And I know a lot of times this is a little intimidating to some people about rolling it up and it cracks. We're going to cover all that. So the first thing that we're going to want to start with is our dry ingredients. And we just have our flour, our salt, cinnamon, allspice, ginger, we have baking soda, and we have baking powder. And I'll have all the ingredients listed in the description. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put all our dry ingredients into a bowl. And we're just going to do this because we want to combine all these ingredients first. And make sure that they're all nice and mixed up so we don't get one spot with a lot of cinnamon or a big chunk of ginger. So we're just going to put it all together. We're just going to take a whisk. We're just going to mix it up just a little bit. Just to get everything incorporated together, that's all. It doesn't have to be a lot. We just want to make sure, like I said, that we get everything together. And once we get this mixed up, we're just going to set this aside for now. And then we're going to work on our other ingredients. And all we're going to want to do with this is we're going to take our sugar, which is a cup, and we're going to take 3 large eggs. And you can do this with a hand mixer if you have it. You can do it with a whisk if you want. We're just going to take our sugar, and we're just going to put it right in our bowl. And we're going to take our 3 large eggs, and we're just going to crack them right in. And once we get these cracked in, we're just going to mix these up for about 3 to 5 minutes on medium to medium high. What we want to do is we want to get this sugar started to get it nice and fluffy, get the eggs, get the sugar started. Once we get our eggs and our sugar in here, we're just going to start this up, and we're going to run this on about medium high. We want to fluff up these egg yolks and the eggs, and we want to get the sugar starting to melt and get this all mixed up. So we'll start it out slow. We want to get this mixed up till we see this start to change color and it gets nice and light and gets whipped up a little bit. Once we get this mixed up and we see that the eggs have changed color, they're nice and light yellow, it's nice and frothy, we're going to add our vanilla. And this is when you're going to want to add 2/3 a cup of pumpkin puree. Now, you can buy the canned, but make sure you get pumpkin puree, which is just pure pumpkin. We don't want pumpkin pie mix. So we're just going to add this right in. Let me get this all in here. And again, it's not a hard recipe. It's just a little intimidating because people don't like to try to roll these up. I mean, you're basically trying to roll a cake. But we'll show you how the best way to do it. We're just going to take this. Now we're going to do this on low because we just want to mix this up. We don't want to go nuts with this. And you might have to scrape down the sides once in a while. We're just going to get this all incorporated. Once we get it mixed up and it's all incorporated and we don't see any streaks, we're going to shut this off. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to take this off. Because what we want to do is we want to add in our dry ingredients, but we want to mix this by hand. We don't want to put this in the mixer. We don't want to work up that gluten any more than we have to. So what we're going to do is we're just going to dump this in. And you don't have to be neat about it. We're just going to dump this right in. And we're just going to fold this in. We're just going to go nice and slow and fold all this in and get it all mixed up. Because we don't want to overwork this. We don't want to beat it with the blender. We want our rolls to come out nice and fluffy. And we don't want them to, if you end up beating this too much, what's going to happen is your pumpkin rolls are going to come out and they're going to feel a little tough. And we don't want that. Once we get it to where we're all mixed up and you can see the consistency of it, how I have it, We didn't beat it up too much. What we're gonna do is we're gonna transfer this now to what they call a jelly roll pan. It's basically a baking pan, and you want one about 10 by 15, maybe 10 by 13, and it's only about an inch deep. You don't wanna go, because this is gonna come out really thin, and when it bakes, it's gonna puff up a little bit. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this to the side, and we're just gonna get our baking pan. Like I said, it's only about an inch thick. And what you wanna do is you wanna take a piece of parchment paper, and you're just gonna lay it in. Now, obviously it's not gonna go in real neat because it's not made to do this, but what we do this for is when we bake this on this parchment paper, we're actually gonna transfer this cake once it's done. We're gonna take it off this pan and we're gonna invert this onto a towel. So we want this parchment paper so we have something to pick up with. So we're just gonna leave this sitting there real lightly, and we're just gonna dump this right in. I'm gonna get all this out because you're gonna need all of this. And it's gonna look like you don't have enough because, like I said, this is thin. But when this bakes up, it'll be perfect. And this is about the time you're gonna wanna preheat your oven to 375 degrees. Because we're gonna bake this 12 to 14 minutes depending on your oven. And you just wanna spread this out. And like I said, it's gonna spread itself out once we get going, but we just wanna give it a head start. We're just gonna spread this all around the pan. Try not to get your fingers in it. What I like to do is I just give it like a little twist shake. And it'll level itself out. And as this bakes, it's gonna thin out too. And we don't care about the parchment paper. We're gonna use this to lift off when we're done. Once we get it to this point, we're gonna wait for our oven to heat up to 375 degrees, and we're gonna bake this for about, like I said, 12 to 14 minutes until you can just gently touch the center. It's gonna spring back. So we're gonna let this bake for about 12 to 14 minutes, and then we'll be right back. We have about 5 minutes left, and our cake should be done. But while we're waiting, what we wanna do is we're gonna take a nice clean towel. I'm using what they call a flour sack towel. It's a real thin towel. It doesn't have a lot of fibers that are sticking up. And what you want to do is you want to lay that flat down on a table because we're going to transfer our cake. We're going to flip it onto our towel. But before we do that, we want to take powdered sugar and we want to coat this towel. We're going to use about 3/4 of a cup to a cup. But you just want to make sure that you get this towel coated. And this is going to help not only sweeten our pumpkin roll, but it's also going to help not stick to our towel. Because we're going to take this towel and we're going to roll the pumpkin roll inside this towel. So we just want to make sure we get this all coated. You don't have to go nuts, but about 3/4 of a cup to a cup. And once we get this coated, like I said, when our cake is finished, we're going to actually take it, invert it into the towel, and we're going to roll it up. So with about 5 minutes left to go, and then we'll bring it out and I'll show you what we're talking about. We've just taken it out of the oven. It's been about 15 minutes for us. We just touched the top. You can use the toothpick technique. Just stick it in. If it comes out clean, you know it's done. And this is the part that a lot of people get a little bit intimidated with. You don't have to absolutely do this. If you want to try and just leave it in the parchment paper and roll it up, you can do that. I prefer to use a towel. I think it cools off a lot quicker and it takes a lot of the moisture out of the cake. So what we're gonna do is the first thing we want to get this off. We want to take our parchment paper and try to slide it off the tray because the tray's extremely hot. And all I did was I took the parchment paper and I pulled it off the tray because the tray's extremely hot, and I just moved it onto our cooling rack to give me something a little bit better to hold on to. Because what we're gonna do now is we're gonna invert this and flip it onto our towel. So what we wanna do is make sure that our parchment paper is folded out of the way as best you can. And we're just gonna take it, and like I said, it's not as hard. We're just gonna take it when you get to a certain point, we're just gonna flip it over. The parchment paper actually helps it stay on. But what you wanna do now is you wanna get this parchment paper off of this if you're not going to use it to roll, you're going to slowly, so we don't pull any of this off that we can, and we're just going to slowly pull this parchment paper back. And no matter how many times you've made these, you might get a crack. I know nobody wants to see a crack in their cake, but it happens. It happens to the best of us. You could make 100 of these, and all of a sudden you'll make 4 in a row that crack on you. It's a thin cake to begin with, so you have to be careful. And we're just going to take this and slowly peel it back. And this cake is extremely delicate because it's still hot. As you can see, the steam coming off of it. And now what we're going to do with this is we're going to start at the small end. And we're going to use the towel to help us roll this cake. And we're going to do this very slowly and very gently. And this is what's going to give us our roll when we go to finish this cake. By rolling it up while it's still hot, it's going to maintain this shape a lot easier than if you wait until this is cold and then try to roll this cake. It's not going to work. Once we get it rolled up, we're going to take a cooling rack, and again, gently, and we're going to lay it on the cooling rack, and we're going to let this cool. And we're going to let this cool for a good 2 to 3 hours because we want to make sure this is completely cooled off before we go to our next step. While we're waiting for our cake to chill, it's been about an hour and a half, but we're going to give it a little bit more time. We're going to start to make the filling. And basically all we're going to use for the filling is we're going to use 8 ounces of cream cheese, and this is all at room temperature. And we're just going to put this right in our bowl. We're going to use 6 ounces of butter, again at room temperature, really soft, because we want this nice and soft. We want this to mix up pretty quickly. We're going to use a cup of powdered sugar. And we're going to use 1 teaspoon of vanilla. We're going to start this on slow for obvious reasons. We don't want to end up with powder all over us. Once we get this a little bit mixed up and we know nothing's going to come flying out, we're going to turn this up to medium until we get everything combined, and then we're going to turn this up to high, and we're going to let this go for 3 or 4 minutes. We want to get this nice and whipped up, nice and creamy. And you're going to want to check the sides every once in a while. And we're going to let this run now. All right, now we got our cream cheese filling mixed up. We're going to take everything out. Just knock this off the sides the best we can. And I will give this to my assistant. Thank you, ma'am. And now we're going to take our roll that we've had cooling, and we're going to slowly and very gently unroll this. And you're going to notice, and you got to be careful, because this is the time, if it's going to crack, this is when it's going to want to do it. And like I said, sometimes you get away and you get lucky and it comes out beautiful, and the next time you can do 100 of them and all of a sudden you go, ah. But you just want to take your time. We're just going to slowly unroll it, and don't rush it. You know what? You get to the very end and it doesn't seem like it wants to go. Just let it go. It'll relax on its own. Once we get it that far, we're going to take our filling, and we're just going to put it right in the center for now. Just getting all this out. As best we can. And we're going to gently, you can use a spatula, you can use a knife, whatever you're comfortable with. We just want to gently layer this out. Now, when you do this, you're going to end up cutting off the very ends of this, because you're not going to be able to use, it's not going to go all the way to the end. So what you want to do is you want to get as close as you can. We're just going to spread this out. And again, all we're trying to do is just get a layer basically to cover as much as we can. Take your time. We got all day. You don't want to rush this part because, like I said, if it's going to crack, it's going to crack when you're going to roll this back up. All right. Once you get it to a point where you're satisfied, and we're also going to have, the towel's going to kind of help us get this started, because what we want to do is we want to roll the center over, again, without cracking. And if it's going to crack, this is usually when it wants to do it, when you're trying to roll everything back together. Because remember, this cooled off. The last thing it wants to do is roll back up. But once you get it started, you're going to slowly peel back until you can get this thing started. And once you do, we're just going to roll with it. And you can feel it's really moist yet, so you got to be careful. And what we want to do is once we get this rolled back up, we're going to want to put this back in the refrigerator and let this chill until it's really, really set up. And you're going to have some squish at the bottom. It's fine. Like I said, we're just trying to get this rolled up now without cracking it. And once you get this rolled up like this, we're going to let this sit. And we're going to let this chill. And we're going to let this chill, preferably overnight. Let this chill, and then you're going to cut the ends off of this to make the ends look really nice and neat. And once you get this far, you're done. It's not a hard dessert to make. It is a little time consuming and it takes some patience. But we're going to let this set up and get even nice and more firm, and then we'll cut the ends off of it. Okay, we've left this cool down a little bit, and all we're going to do is we're just going to look, about see how deep we have to go, and we're just going to cut the ends of it off to make it look a little bit neater. And I'm using a serrated knife, and I'm just going to go real slow, right down through it. We don't want to push it because we don't want to crush it, and we're not worried about the end piece. We're worrying about the piece right there. That's what we're more or less concerned about. All right, so we're going to cut the other side off. Now, I'm not going to cut into this because this is going to be going to a friend of ours, but I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you'll like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment and let us know. And join us next week when we're going to be doing a Caribbean rum cake. So until next week, I hope you have a great day.